To close our morning plenary, we now turn our attention to diplomacy at the sub-national level. And we're going to welcome three USJC Council leaders to our stage. In this conversation, we're privileged to welcome back Hiroshima Governor Hidehiko YUZAKI. Governor YUZAKI is well known to us USJC members because he's a friend of the Council, and he's the leader of the USJC's Governor Circle program over the past decade, drawing on his extensive experience in Silicon Valley. And with his successful hosting of the G7 summit in Hiroshima this year, he's even more visible globally, and we appreciate that he crossed the pond to join us today. Joining him will be Seattle Mayor Bruce Harrell. Now, Mayor Harrell is Seattle's first African-American, first biracial, and second black mayor. He is also a USJC member. And get this, he's an alumnus of the Japanese American Leadership Delegation, class of 2016. We're so proud of him as our alumnus. And by the way, football fans in Seattle probably know that he was a star linebacker at the University of Washington back in his days as a Husky. Right? I hear some laughter there. Yeah. Oh, by the way, the Huskies are undefeated so far this year, too. This fireside chat will be moderated by a member of the USJC Board of Directors, Sachi Hamai. She is the retired CEO of Los Angeles County, which, if you didn't know, is the largest municipal government in the United States. And I know Sachi, she's a big Dodgers fan to boot. So they had a tough season at the very end. Anyway, Sachi, gentlemen, the floor is yours.
Well, good morning, everyone. It's nice to see everybody up bright and early this morning. And I'm so honored to be here with two very special elected individuals. First, the mayor, who was elected in 2021 as the mayor of Seattle, and previous to that, he was on the city council, first elected in 2009 and served there, and then again became the mayor. And then Governor YUZAKI, who is honoring us today, came from Japan just the other day, but has served now in his fourth term, but has served since 2009. So thank you both for being here. I am going to start talking about what have been your priorities, both as mayor and as governor, for the areas that you have served. And Governor, I'd like to start with you, talking about some of your top priorities.
Yeah, well, as probably many of you know, in Japan, the population decrease is the largest problem and issue, as well as the globalization is coming in our society. So how we prepare the especially young students to be able to work in this global environment, those two are very big issues.
Thank you. Mayor?
I would say, first of all, thanks for having us. And Sasha and the governor, I've been preparing for an hour. We are fired up right now, so get ready for some strong answers here. So in all seriousness, in Seattle, we're a very wealthy city. And I think many of you know that we're the home of many of the giant global companies. Our per capita wealth is one of the highest in the country, and we're the fastest growing city in America. Now with that comes the problems of crime. Although Seattle now, I could say under our administration, we have decreased our percentage of major reported crime and violent crime is down. We're short police officers. So public safety is our charter responsibility, making sure we keep everyone safe, and we have challenges there. The other challenge is housing, housing affordability. A house that I grew up as a child in Seattle you could have gotten it for maybe $50,000 or $100,000. The median house is close to $1 million, and so The wages have not kept up with that. So we have a housing crisis. The great news is just 2 days ago we passed a housing levy that I proposed that was passed by a wide margin. It's almost $1 billion housing levy to achieve affordable housing. So I would say, and third, our fentanyl crisis, the opioid crisis that's plaguing our country and your cities as well. We have a challenge with that. So my short answer that has gotten a little long now is public safety, housing, and the health issue dealing with fentanyl and opioid issues.
Thank you. I know I was teasing the mayor just a bit when we were in the back room. I know that they're a wealthy city, but I think that the Dodgers still have money to get Shohei Ohtani.
We do. We do.
So we're in a little competition here.
Yes, we want him more than you guys want.
They might have more money, so anyway. Let me ask both of you how long you have been involved in U.S.-Japan Council, and how has the U.S.-Japan Council helped both of you, both professionally as well as personally? Governor?
Oh, yes. Well, before that, I'm very much honored and glad to be on the panel with both of you because, I'm a Japanese, being...
Wait, you didn't tell me you're Japanese.
Well, I'm a Japanese, being governor of a Japanese prefecture, and it's, I wouldn't say it's easy, but it's okay as long as you're doing what is right. But both of you, you are from regions, working in the regions with the very complex ethnic diversity, and you probably had a lot of difficult challenges. I wouldn't say discrimination, but biases and other things
Right.
that you have faced, and being such a great heads of executives, I really admire you and both of you and respect you, and thank you very much for being here with me. And I forgot the question.
But I think that, so
threw
let me help you a little bit. I think that...
No. Well, actually...
Well scripted up here.
I do not remember...
We went through all of this. Believe me, we practiced.
No, because I studied this about this USJC relationship, and I don't know when actually the USJC started exactly, but I think I was involved pretty early time, right? Through I was humble student of
Stanford.
Dan Okimoto, Professor Dan Okimoto, and he invited me for the governor's circle, and that's how we studied. And also, I had a very good relationship with the Ambassador John Roos, and he has been taking a great lead in USJC, of course, and the U.S.-Japan relationship as ambassador, and those are how I got involved.
And I think that you have served on many panels over the last, since 2014, I think you were on one of the Silicon Valley panels,
Yes.
and also sat on many panels with different governors talking to the USJC.
Yeah, this one of the reasons being I've been serving as a governor for a long time, too long.
So USJC has helped in terms of having discussions with other governors and talking
Yes.
about different issues.
Yes. And it started with the relationship with the Silicon Valley, well, partly because of the Professor Dan Okimoto's presence. But I think we're now more involved with the general relationship between the U.S. and Japan.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Mayor, how about you?
I was looking for the answer. So
Actually, I think that
I
what I
understand.
hear from every jailed individual is, which year was the best?
2016 is when I, in all seriousness, what is jail? what does the delegation mean to me? It's very personal. I'll be serious for the moment. You know, my introduction suggested I was in 150 years in Seattle. I am the second person of color to be elected. First person of Asian descent, Japanese descent or Asian descent. The second person of, I'm biracial, half black. Second person of African American descent. That was like 30 years ago, by the way, in a white city. And Japanese population, just so you know, is about 1.3% of Seattle. I never ran saying I'm very proud of my Japanese heritage, unashamedly proud. But I didn't run on that. I didn't say that. In a whiter city, they decided to elect me in a field of 15 candidates, and I won by the biggest margin in 30 years for a non-incumbent. And for those that have experienced being around people who are biracial or you identify as being multiracial, what JALD has done for me is help me understand that Japanese side of me, because quite candidly, my mother, who was interned, as many Japanese Americans were, we didn't talk about that, being Japanese. And quite honestly, I'm going to be brutally transparent with you, I didn't even know what to say to describe what being Japanese meant. We were transparent, we were invisible, we kept our head low on that particular issue. I did know that I had to outwork everybody. I was a football player, as described. I'm one of the top tacklers in our Husky history, and I wasn't particularly big, but I was tenacious. And that is what my mother, my beautiful Japanese mother, whose father came from Kumamoto, would instill in me. That she would say, Bruce, you have to outwork everybody, you have to out-hustle everybody, you have to study harder than everybody. What JLD did for me when I was younger, I was young once, by the way, and when I was younger and visited Japan, and my wife and I have been there many times since, that our three kids, all of whom are college educated and have graduate master's degrees, that I still instilled in them that same philosophy about how having to outwork everyone, but never to boast or beat your chest. And since in these relationships that I'm having with many of you, I'm still discovering what it means to identify as being Japanese. In Seattle, I'm overwhelmingly accepted by the API community, but it's almost offensive when they lump us all together. I mean, I think there's beautiful diversity and brilliance within the API community. I don't denigrate my other API brothers and sisters. But that unique quality about being Japanese, I'm going to learn even during this conference what it means to you or what it should mean to me. So that's what this conference and what these gatherings mean. I could talk politics all day, world politics, local politics. I love this stuff. But in terms of what it means to be Japanese, this is a path of self-discovery, and it continues. That's what this organization means for me. You could clap at the end of that if you like.
And on one of the trips through the U.S.-Japan Council, you were able to connect to your family heritage. Is that correct?
Yeah. So my grandfather, funny story, my grandfather came from Kumamoto, and one of the trips you and I met our late Prime Minister Abe and the Princess. I did some great trips, but on a most recent trip, my grandfather, who had come from Kumamoto, I met his brother's family, the Kobatas, and my mother's maiden name was Kobata, so the house still had Kobata on there. And they thought my grandfather, who was a very successful business person in Seattle, they thought he stopped in Tokyo to become a sumo wrestler. He was a big guy. And so when I told we had pre-planned the trip and everything, and they had seen pictures of my political career and my background in business. I was a telecom attorney in technology before becoming mayor. And they were all told stories that this big guy wanted to be a sumo wrestler, but only that he was not a very good sumo wrestler. And he stopped in Tokyo. They never even knew he had trekked to America. And so we showed them pictures of the story, and we're going to do follow-up. But it was one of the most emotional reuniting journey that I think I had experienced. It was pretty teary-eyed. You know, I'm seeing my mother's first cousins who I'd never met, and they didn't even know we existed. And then I saw things that my mother told to me that were told by her parents about what the village looked like and what the people were like. And so that was life-changing. And again, this organization and other organizations that I've become to know have been life-changing for me personally. But what an emotional experience to see my actual roots in Kumamoto.
Great, thank you. I'm going to change subjects just a little bit because you were both very prominent this year. Your cities were both prominent. Hiroshima held the G7 Hiroshima Summit, and then also earlier in August, the APEC Summit, the Digital Summit, was held in Seattle. So maybe we could talk a little bit about both of those events. Governor, I think you utilized the summit to also get your messaging across, and maybe you could talk about that.
Sure. We had 3 goals of our own. The G7 summit itself is, it's a national meeting, but we thought of our own goals, what we're going to do when we host the summit. And one is, of course, delivering the message of peace to the world. And it could be separate from the Japanese government or G7 itself. But we wanted people to know what happened in Hiroshima, and a lot of press, media carried that stories in all over the world. And they had an interview of Hibakusha, and they had an interview of me. They had an interview of people who are active in the nuclear disarmament area, and so those messages are sent out. And then the second goal was to let the people in the world the charm of Hiroshima, and this was really helped by Prime Minister Sunak. He was wearing the apron and cooking the okonomiyaki, and that scene was carried on to the press. And also he wore Hiroshima carp socks when he had a dinner with Prime Minister Kishida, and that was, very good way to, let the people know about the Hiroshima carp. By the way, Hiroshima carp, Mazda Stadium is a really special place where, all the stadium will be in red.
Oh.
Yeah, because only the competing team will be only very small one section. So anyways, and a lot of press also carried the nature of Hiroshima and art and crafts in Hiroshima. So that was really good. And actually, the entire press coverage, media coverage, through not only at the G7 but before and after G7, it's about $8 billion worth of press coverage. So that was really good. And the third is to create a legacy for youth. So we had a lot of young students, high school and college students, and other young, even kindergarten kids participate in some of the process with G7. So they are, they can feel they took some part in this, huge meeting and global meeting, and they'll be that will have a huge impact on their life. So,
And I think you had given out a statistic after the G7 summit, how much tourism has increased in your area.
Yes, well, it's really, the tourism is now coming back about up to 80, 90, at some point, more than 100% of tourists, and especially those from foreign tourists are increasing. U.S. is about 90%, French over 100%. But it was really good to see, but felt really bad when, in August, there was a huge line of like 2 hours for going into the Peace Museum. Some people had to wait for 2 hours in August in this year in Japan, it's like 100 degrees, right? With the humidity, and they had to wait for 2 hours, and which is good, but which is, really, we felt really bad for them to be standing in line outside.
Waiting.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Mayor, I know that you had the APEC Digital Summit, and if you want to get any thoughts on that.
Well, two things. Number one, I was actually, I think, the only mayor invited to the summit and the G7 in Japan. Secretary Buttigieg asked me to join him, and I hope I represented you well. I was told that we did pretty well. And, put it in context is when it comes to Seattle is, Japan's one of our leading trade partners, right? I mean, in the last 10 years, we're almost toppled $1 trillion worth of trade, almost $20 billion annually. We started trading with Japan around 1800. I think the first registered Japanese citizen on our census was around 1808. So we have a long-standing relationship, having a gateway to Japan. So when we had our discussions here in Seattle, again, we're the home of Amazon, one of your sponsors here, among the other great sponsors, and we're the home of Boeing or Microsoft, Starbucks, Costco, you name it. I have a pretty darn good hand as a mayor in terms of some of our global strength. That the values associated with the summit, basically, innovation, inclusiveness, climate change. I realized that we were speaking our love language to one another, and I didn't think coming from this kind of Apex discussions we would have those discussions. So the relationships became built. And these are sustainable relationships. And so we were honored to host the activities in APEC, again, with the 21 member economies, that I developed personal relationships that will, quite frankly, turn into good relationships, looking at how we, particularly now, with the world conflicts we're having, the importance of easing the tensions on border emphasis, and looking at what we can do in common. So I think that this is good stuff, and I'm put in a good position to be a mayor of a global city in this sense, and so I take full advantage of that. Great experiences, great relationships have been developed.
Great, thank you. And I think that segues into the next question, and it talks about what the U.S.-Japan Council is all about and the bilateral relationships. I think having two important large summits. We were just in the background talking about the economy worldwide. The mayor's talked and just said how many major companies he has in his backyard, but also talking with the governor about how can we trade or talk about discussions on mutual businesses. And so I don't know if either of you want to just talk quickly about maybe any future recommendations you might have in working together, whether it's Hiroshima and Seattle or it's the US and Japan.
Yeah, well, let me start as, I think I need to leave in
Yes, and I apologize. Let me just say administrative matter. The governor, we're running a little bit behind, so the governor has to leave in just about 2 minutes. So we'll let him have final closing comments, and then I'll just finish up with the mayor.
Yeah, well, so I think, the bilateral relationship really drills down to the actions and efforts of individuals, finally. And that really counts. I mean, each one of you, all the, everything that people do, I mean, even in the small things, that really counts to enhancement of the U.S.-Japan relationship. But also, what leaders do have a huge impact too. Like if you look at the Abe-san and President Trump, they, in many cases internationally, the countries had a little bit difficult situation with the U.S. in terms of diplomatic relationship. But Abe-san made a huge effort to be friends with President Trump, and that stabilized the U.S.-Japan relationship. Whether you like it or not. But that contributed a lot. And also, when President Obama came, Prime Minister Abe and President Obama, they had, I think, not in a bad term or anything. They were in a very regular diplomatic relationship. But I think, in that case, Ambassador Roos had a huge role in, making a road to the President Obama's visit to Hiroshima. And, there we had the, really historic hug of President Obama of Hibakusha, right? And the road study from the Ambassador Roos attending for the first time as ambassador, U.S. ambassador, the August 6th memorial ceremony. And, those efforts had, really made strong ties and stabilized and developed the U.S.-Japan relationship. And then, March 11th and Tomodachi program that ambassador did, those are really strong building block of the bilateral relationship. And he as a leader did those things. And so we have, leaders have a huge impact. But not only the leaders, but every individual, what they do, what they say, have impacts. And I hope USJC will be a platform to facilitate that and help that, the individual actions and, of course, collective actions and efforts.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I know, Governor, you have to leave right now, so please join me in thanking the governor for being here today.
Thank you. Sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And then I am, our final question, I'm just throwing this one back again to you, the same question that I just asked the governor about the bilateral relationships and what can be done in the future.
Sure, I'll take a little different twist in the closing. This will be my close too.
Yes, thank you.
So first, can we unwind the tape and let's erase the part about any benefits we had while Trump was in office? That was just a little joke there.
The governor left.
Okay, right. In all seriousness, what I would say is, we have hundreds and hundreds of companies in Seattle, Japanese companies called Seattle home. I say to you as members, primarily members of the Japanese community or the API community, this is our time in America right now. So there was a wave of mayors, Asian mayors who got elected in major cities. 3 of us, Michelle Wu in Boston, Aftab Purvel in Cincinnati. There are of course, some mayors of some smaller cities. That in a country that is obsessed with race, we are having the same discussions on race, the same discussions that we've had for the last 50 or 60 years. We are now seeing an increase, a spike in anti-Asian hate right now. 340% increase. I'm going to give a speech to the State Department here in a few hours this afternoon about this issue. And so why do I say it's our time? Because we have been somewhat silent through the internment experience, through the Chinese Exclusion Act, through the race struggles. We've done what we've needed to do to help all boats rise. I'm not casting a judgment on any person in this room. But I think we are uniquely positioned to talk about, as we celebrate our diversity, we can only celebrate that to the extent it leads to our path toward commonality. I say to you as a biracial person that this is our time. That I don't care so much about our differences. I want to learn. My wife and I are always curious about different cultures, different religions, different lifestyles, but only to the extent it leads to what we have in common. We can't be quiet anymore. We can't be that silent minority, that transparent person that wants to assimilate at every opportunity. And I don't really care if you get mad at what I'm saying right now. I spent a lifetime having to fight through these issues. You don't want to know the words that I've been called in my life. I'm a very popular person in Seattle, but it came at a cost and an expense. So when you're dealing with your local elected officials, your state, your federal, I was so inspired by the federal delegation you had, some of the Hawaii Hawaiian members yesterday. We have a great opportunity to help this country out right now. So the question has to do with business. We're pretty good at business. We work hard, pretty smart. Now, how do we parlay that to help change this country, particularly when people are hating in unprecedented levels us just because we are Asian? So we have to speak up, we have to organize, we have to get behind our politicians, and you force those politicians to no longer duck, but always to lead with compassion, love, faith, and those things that I know you know very, very well. So that's my close, and I am available to talk after because we have a great opportunity to help this country out. And I don't want to leave anything on the table at all in this discussion. This is our time, at a time where violence against you, your families, our communities are at an all-time high. Now we speak up, and we do something about it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Sachi.
Thank you.